Hello, students. Mr. Mann here again. Um, we're about halfway through our second week of distance learning, so we're chugging right through. We're going to continue talking about ecology, so food chains, food webs, food pyramids, stuff we talked about last week, a little bit more in depth. Our game plan for today is I'm going to post an Edpuzzle with this video, and then after the Edpuzzle, I'm going to expect you to take like a 10-point 10 question quiz. Super easy. It's going to be on food chains, food webs, and the different players in each. You guys will do fine. One thing I want to bring up is to plan to spend time on the Edpuzzles. We're going to use Edpuzzle quite a bit for this distance learning. So if it's a 10-minute video on Edpuzzle, make sure you're going to spend the 10 minutes to watch it and answer the questions. I wouldn't play it, go take a shower, come back, try to answer the questions. Watch the video. All the answers are right in the video. We're not trying to trip you up. The Edpuzzles are pretty much how we're going to do notes in our deeper learning. If you guys need some more review on the content, you don't feel like or maybe we're going too fast with it here, you can always replay the videos. All the videos are posted on YouTube. I have all these Edpuzzle videos are posted on my YouTube before they go on Edpuzzle. And then Mr. Teskey also uploads all his, so check out both our channels if you want to get more practice with this stuff. Like I said, we're going to do an Edpuzzle, then I'm going to expect you to do a quiz. Some of you are getting email reminders from me. I promise you I'm not hounding you. I just want to remind you guys when work is due. I know if I didn't get reminders all the time for different things, I would forget them. So just trying to make sure you guys aren't forgetting your work, and we're getting points into the grade book every lesson. Just a reminder, all science is posted on Monday and Wednesday. Other classes might be posting Tuesday, Thursday. Some people are posting Sunday night. You should always expect science to be Monday and Wednesday. Okay, I think some kids are getting confused. Sometimes they don't even know when science is posted. So check Google Classroom Monday, Wednesday. Your assignments will be there on those days. From now on, we're going to do like our main lessons are Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays are catch-up days, ask questions, and then we're also probably going to start posting to some more fun science demo type stuff. More general science stuff that you're not going to get graded on, but more of the fun stuff, just fun to watch. So let's go ahead and get started with our lesson. Okay, so for your last assignment, you were supposed to go outside, record some producers, consumers, decomposers, and write down at least 3 food chains. And here we have a few examples of some food chains. So you always want to start your food chain off with some producer, right? Producers take energy from the sun directly and turn it into food for themselves. So all of these plants here take energy from the sun, add some water and some carbon dioxide, and they make glucose and they make oxygen, right? We call that photosynthesis. These producers take energy from the sun and they make their own food. You always want to start your food chain off with the producers and then move on from there, okay? Now, the things that eat the producers, right? Organisms that eat other organisms are consumers, right? The rat here would eat the corn. It's eating another living organism. It is a consumer. It doesn't make its own food from the sun. It eats other organisms to get its energy. Each of these arrows represents the flow of energy. Sometimes it's confusing. Some kids think that, oh man, the corn eats the rat. That's the way the arrow's pointing. No, this is the flow of energy. So the rat gets its energy from the corn and the owl gets its energy from the rat. If you go down here, the grasshopper eats the grass, so the energy is flowing to the grasshopper. The frog eats the grasshopper. So the energy is flowing to the frog. The snake eats the frog. So that energy is flowing to the snake, and then the eagle eats the snake, and the energy flows there. It's really, really important. One of the big takeaways here is that for every arrow here, some energy is lost, right? Animals and plants don't have 100% efficiency. Some energy is lost to heat. Some energy is lost when animals go to the restroom, go to the bathroom, take some energy to poop. Anything an animal does, they're using energy, right? That's why they get the energy in the first place. So some of that energy isn't just 100% from the corn sent to the rat. Some energy is lost in the process. So for each arrow here, a little bit of energy is lost, but it is still flowing to the rat or to the owl, okay? So if you add up these arrows though, so you start with some energy from the carrots to the rabbit, but you lose a little bit. The fox eats the rabbit, but loses a little bit of energy from the rabbit that it gets. And the lion eats the fox, and there's more energy lost there. So by the time the energy has flowed to the lion, a lot of it has been lost already. Okay, it's not 100% efficient. The energy loses a little bit at each step. Time the energy has flowed to the top predator, like the lion, the eagle, or the owl here, there's not much energy left. You start with a lot of energy here at the corn, right? They absorb a lot of energy from the sun. That's where the base of your energy starts from, the most energy, and you lose it as you get to the top of this food chain. With each step, you lose about 10% of the energy. So at each step, you're losing energy. Okay, so the other type of diagram that we're going to talk about here, we go from food chains, which is just linear, right? You have three in a line, four in a line. They're all in a line, linear, you're thinking. If you kind of mesh them together, you get what's called a food web, right? A spider web isn't a straight line, it's a web. It's kind of interconnected. So if you look at the food web, it's like a bunch of food chains put together for an area, for an environment. So for instance, you can go from the corn to the grasshopper to the rat to the eagle, or you could do corn to the grasshopper to the frog to the python. You could go mangoes to fruit fly to dragonfly to frog to python to eagle. There's a whole bunch of different food chains here, but overall it's doing the same thing. It's showing the flow of energy. Your top predators are here at the top, where the arrows end up pointing, right? It all ends up at the eagle. And you have your producers at the bottom here. These are where your energy begins. So each organism plays an important role in this food web, in each food chain. Like a spider web, if you pull one of these strings out, right? Let's say you pull the rat out, your web's going to kind of sag, not be as efficient. Some animals are going to suffer. This can have big effects on populations. Okay, it has big implications for how the energy is flowing. The arrows, like in the food chain, represent the flow of energy. So at each arrow, that's the way the energy is flowing. The energy is flowing from the corn to the grasshopper. The energy is flowing from the grasshopper to the frog. The energy is flowing from the frog to the eagle. You can find these paths, many different waves on this food web. Okay, but for each arrow, there's a loss of energy. So by the time this energy has flowed up to the eagle, there isn't a whole heck of a lot of it left. That's why you have a ton of producers, right? If you go driving around, you see tons and tons and tons of plants. Your populations of plants are huge. You see less consumers, right? But you can still see quite a few. You go around, you might see a herd of deer. You might see a bunch of grasshoppers somewhere. You can still see quite a few consumers, but definitely a lot less than your producers, right? You can go walk outside here and see thousands of producers. And that's why you also think it's super cool. It's kind of rare to see some of those top consumers, those top of the food chain predators, like the eagles, right? We have quite a few around here, but in general, you don't see as many eagles as you do deer or as many mice around. You don't see a whole lot of mice, but they're there. You don't see as many eagles as you do producers for sure. And another part of this food web that's kind of left out because it's hard to see are the decomposers, right? So after the eagle dies, the decomposers, you could have an arrow going to decomposers because they're eating the eagle. And then it kind of makes a full circle because plants also use energy from some decomposers to thrive, right? They use different elements like phosphorus and nitrogen that you can find in different types of decomposers. So some big takeaways I want you to get from the food web is there's different levels here. You have producers, you have primary consumers, secondary consumers, tertiary consumers. You don't have to worry about that advanced terminology, but you do need to know the difference between a producer, a consumer, and a decomposer because they have three very different sources of energy. You don't want to get them confused with each other. That's what I'm expecting you to know. So producers get energy from the sun, make it into their food, and then consumers eat other living organisms to get their energy, and then decomposers break down dead things. So those are the big three that I really need you to know: producers, consumers, decomposers. Now you can break down the consumers into herbivores, omnivores, carnivores, right? Herbivores eat plants, omnivores eat plants and other animals or organisms, and your scavengers eat dead animals. So you can even break down consumers more from there. Okay, finally, we're going to look at energy pyramids. This is the last diagram we're going to look at. If you look here, the bottom of your pyramid is much bigger, okay? Bigger, fatter part of the pyramid. That represents a couple of things. Number one, the most amount of energy in the food chain, in the food web, in the food pyramid is at the bottom here. Producers. Producers get the most energy. You have, vegetation, plants. They're taking energy from the sun. The most energy we're going to start with at the pyramid. As you go up, let's say your first consumers here, like a grasshopper eats grass. You lose a little bit of energy, but you still have quite a bit of energy at this level of the food pyramid. As you go up, this is like going up the food web or up a food chain. The thing that eats the grasshopper, that's where it gets its energy, but it loses a little bit of energy in the process, okay? So you start with a lot of producers, large populations, and the populations get smaller until you get to the top of the food pyramid, which is your apex predators, right? Alligators, eagles, sharks, lions, bears, wolves. You don't see a whole lot of them because the energy, there just isn't enough energy at that level to sustain large populations. You lose energy as you go up. So your energy goes down as you go up the pyramid, and so do your populations of those animals. Okay, guys, so just to recap, what you need to get from this is what a food chain is, what a food web is, what are the difference between the two, what does a food pyramid show? It shows a couple of things, right? Changes in populations as you go up a food web, and also changes in energy as you go up a food web. You also, another big thing is to know the difference between producers, consumers, and decomposers, and what their role is and how energy flows between them. So if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email, watch these videos again, set up a Google Meet with me. I'm usually free anytime between 7:30 and 3:30, so let me know. So last thing I want to tell you is have a happy Easter break, and I hope that you have a fun weekend dealing with this COVID stuff, but hopefully you guys stay safe and have a fun Easter.